The Tennessee Volunteers have made their way inside the playoff, Joe. We've been on this run on doing national title runs, and Tennessee is going to have a very difficult path if they make it to a national title, if they play for a national title game, or even get to the semis. When you look at Tennessee, what's their path of getting that national title game? What is their path of winning the whole thing?
First off, talking about the Ohio State-Tennessee game, we previewed that fully last week. Be sure to go and check out that preview that we have.
And we're going to do it again tomorrow, so get ready for it.
We're going to talk about it from a different angle tomorrow and reset on expectations there. But one of the things that we discussed is that why they can have an advantage to beat Ohio State. Ohio State's offensive line is banged up. They're down two of their better players without Seth McLaughlin at center and Josh Simmons. They've been without for a while now. I know that they've got some guys that have stepped up and played decently well, but going up against an incredibly deep defensive line for Tennessee, led by James Pierce Jr. and Omar Norman Lott, it is a lot for them to handle. So their path starts with their defensive line carrying them and dominating against this Ohio State team. And if they're able to beat Ohio State, we discussed why Oregon is in still control despite having a difficult path. But to take the opposite angle here, Blake, of what if things go wrong for Oregon? We've brought up a ton of times how Oregon's run defense has not been consistent. The way that they played in the Big Ten championship game raised concerns that we've brought up in separate weeks throughout the year. So the way that they can beat Oregon and why they maybe were given a sneaky potential upset situation is if Dylan Sampson comes out of the Ohio State game riding some momentum and has a huge day against that Oregon run defense. That, to me, I think is the biggest catalyst for them going on a run, because Texas and whoever they could face in the national championship game is very beatable if they're able to knock off Oregon.
Here comes the hot take, and I don't like to be the hot take guy like, hey, this is the team. I'm not going to come out of nowhere and say that I think Tennessee's winning a national title. Hot take, right?
Okay.
Like that's just not me. I don't do that for clicks or whatever.
Okay.
They are my dark horse to win the national title game, and let me tell you why. Because they do things that very well that Oregon and Ohio State both have issues in. Their biggest strength is Oregon, Ohio State's biggest weakness at the current moment. I think they can go in here and win this game now. Like, I really do. I would lean Ohio State because, look, man, I mean, can Tennessee get over that hump? It's still Ohio State. It's on the road. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Joe, they can line up and dominate the line of scrimmage defensively against Ohio State better than I think from a speed aspect than what Michigan did. Right? Michigan was very blunt force, very downhill. We're going to be in your face. We're going to dominate the interior. Where Tennessee has that, without a doubt, they got serious dudes at edge. So it's a completely different thing, and you're now having to replace tackle, center. It's a lot of things that they throw at you. If Jalen Milroe cannot run away from this defense, Will Howard cannot. We've seen this defense go up against better offensive lines and dominate. And so I've seen them go toe-to-toe with Georgia. I've seen them on the offensive line in the run game, not in the pass game. Hold on just a minute on that. Mm-hmm. I've seen them go up against Georgia, who's been top 15 defensively all year. Joe, in the first half, they ran right at him, and there wasn't anything Georgia could do. I think that Tennessee is just a bad matchup for those teams because their two biggest strengths are their opponent's two biggest weaknesses. Now, what worries me going into this, there are going to be moments and times, like we talked about with Notre Dame a couple of days ago, and I told you I wasn't trolling, and I'm not trolling here. Can you throw the ball in critical third downs to win football games? That's where it comes down to. When you're converting on third downs on the road, big game environments, big game situations is where you make your mark. So when I look at Tennessee, can they go into Columbus, Ohio, and run the ball effectively? Can they get after an offensive line that is really banged up and get after Will Howard is ultimately the question. But, Joe, I got to tell you, I could see them doing both. I could see their defensive line doing that. I could see their offensive line doing that against Oregon because Oregon's been bad defensively in the run game. I look at Tennessee as my dark horse to win this thing, man. If there's going to be a team that comes out of nowhere, I think it's them.
I think you bring up a really good point too, because Josh Heupel has always been a sneaky good coach. Like, he has always been a coach that has prepared his guys to take advantage of weaknesses to pull out wins that I think a lot of people aren't expecting. Like, let's look back to when we previewed the Alabama-Tennessee game. I think we both thought that Alabama was going to find a way to win that game on the road. A lot of people nationally believe that as well. They thought that after the Arkansas loss, that Tennessee was showing some serious signs of immaturity and that they weren't ready for the big stage, but they finished out the year strong and they found ways to get wins and to accomplish everything that they needed to by leaning on their defense in the run game. I think you brought up what also is, we know that I already discussed Dylan Sampson having a big game against Oregon, the D-line having a big game against Ohio State, like you reinforced there. But you added in, I think, what's the most important piece of all this. Nico and him stepping up to the plate and going from where in spurts throughout this year where he has played as the young budding star that's still yet to reach his potential. If he's able to take that step forward, which is asking a lot, but having multiple weeks to prepare and to get locked in and to maybe take a deep breath and just to think ahead to, like, what are we going to do when we get this playoff matchup? He's had a little bit of time to clear his head. How does he play in these games? Because if Nico plays to that potential and he's impactful as a runner and he's making those plays as a passer in those third down situations, he is the most physically gifted quarterback in this entire playoff field, without a doubt. If he can play to 75% of his potential, that national championship run that you're talking about is 100% attainable. So I agree with you on this. I think Tennessee, out of any of the teams that we've talked about that are in the more unexpected category, that would be the sleeper team category, Tennessee leads the bunch that they could go on this hypothetical run.
He's got to get help now, too.
Yeah.
He's got to get help from his offensive line. He's got to get help from receivers, Joe. They're dropping more balls than
oh my! What are you?
They're dropping where you're going balls. With that. Well, they're dropping more balls in the strip club. Okay, I mean, like it gets to a place where he's not getting help either. I feel like that we're labeling Nico in the sense of that it's all been on him, and it's not been all on him. I think Tennessee, when you're talking about a team, Joe, that's 8th in the country in rush defense and rush defense. Ohio State, can you run the ball? And then if you're in a situation where that you got to throw the ball in every day on Will Howard because you can't establish a running game, then what? Then what? That's where it starts becoming for me. So then I look at them, Joe. I think that even in a semifinal game, I think they could beat Texas. I saw him go toe-to-toe with Georgia. It's the same exact situation. Those teams are very even here. So, again, if there is a dark horse that presents a very interesting puzzle piece for both of these Big Ten schools early, it is Tennessee. I'm not leaning with them. I told you last week that Oregon's in my national title game, so obviously I'm not picking Tennessee to beat them. But if there is somebody that wouldn't surprise me, it's them. One other thing I want to throw in here, too, about Tennessee. Tennessee, for what it's worth, is the number 2 team in the SEC on third down defense. They're 5th in the country in third down defense. Joe, Ohio State has struggled there, man. They've struggled. They're 47th, and I get, oh, my God, they're 47th. They have not been able to run the ball on third down. Go look at their third down efficiency rate after the Nebraska game. Sputtered. Fell out of control. So I look at Tennessee, man. I might call a mild upset on Wednesday. I'm talking myself into this. I really am. So we'll see. One other thing, too. Scoring defense. They're tied for 4th. So Tennessee's had a light schedule early, but they hadn't had a light schedule in the SEC. That's for damn sure. So we're going to find out how these teams match up for sure. So
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number 1 source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.